Imagine that life itself is deaf to your justifications and completely blind to your most secret dreams. If the universe wanted to discover your true identity, it wouldn't ask about your desires, nor would it listen to the sad stories of your past. It would begin by observing something far more unsettling and direct: the way you breathe, walk, and sit when you believe no one is watching. We have been taught to believe that our essence is hidden and protected deep within our chest, untouchable and far from the eyes of others. But the great explorer of human depths, Carl Jung, left us a silent and disturbing warning. He realized that what we refuse to illuminate within ourselves gains weight, takes shape in matter, and walks beside us under the name of destiny. Your appearance is not a superficial detail. It is the fingerprint of your soul, the posture that shrugs your shoulders, the gaze that quickly drifts to the ground, the clothes you choose as a shield to disappear into the crowd. All of this is a continuous confession. It's a brutal, daily confession of how much you respect yourself when the applause ceases and no one is around to approve of your steps. Have you ever wondered why certain people cross the threshold of a room and the very energy of the air seems to change, while others, full of talent and extreme kindness, go through their entire lives being treated like invisible shadows? What separates the revered being from the one who is forgotten and left on the sidelines? The answer doesn't lie in luck, empty charisma, or chance, but in the absolute coherence between what you feel and what you show. The material world is merely a faithful echo. It responds exactly to the energy you have chosen to embody. When your spirit carries an unhealed wound and you run from that pain, your physical body assumes the sacrifice of displaying your invisible bleeding to the world. The great web of existence doesn't respond to what you cry out for in the middle of the night. It obeys only what you affirm yourself to be when you wake up, lift your face, and dress for the world. Every carelessness accepted in the name of false comfort, every disdainful glance you cast at your own reflection, is a magnetic decree sent to the cosmos. Without realizing it, you decree, "The light that dwells within me does not deserve to be seen." And the universe, in its law of infinite obedience and mirroring, simply agrees and keeps the sacred doors closed to you. You may try to deceive yourself to avoid dealing with the weight of this responsibility. You may seek refuge in the comforting idea that flesh and form do not matter, believing that the purity of your inner self is grand enough to negate the abandonment of your exterior. However, there is a very dangerous illusion in this belief, a silent trap that has imprisoned brilliant souls in realities infinitely smaller than they deserve. There is a destructive lie you tell yourself every time you try to convince yourself that your image is unimportant in the vastness of life. And it is precisely about the devastating price of this lie, and about what it has stolen from you every day, that your conscience will need to confront from now on. You tell yourself that appearance is just an empty shell. You repeat, almost like a protective mantra, that people should love and recognize you for your intellect, your pure heart, and your unseen intentions. And so, morning after morning, you open your closet and choose clothes that don't celebrate your existence, but serve as a perfect hiding place. You wear neutral colors so as not to attract attention. You get ready in a hurry so as not to waste time. And you look away from the mirror because the reflected image no longer corresponds to the greatness you feel pulsing inside. You desire a sweeping love, but your physical presence constantly communicates the fear of being rejected. You desire prosperity and respect, but your posture screams resignation and weariness. This daily disconnection is not a sign of spiritual superiority or profound humility, as your mind tries to make you believe. Carl Jung, in exploring the dark labyrinths of the psyche, revealed an uncomfortable mystery about our nature. That which we consciously despise is often precisely what exerts the greatest control over our unconscious destiny. Denying the importance of your physical shell is a very clever defense. It's a way of surrendering before even entering the battle, because improving how you present yourself requires something far more frightening than failure itself. It requires responsibility. It requires you to abandon once and for all the role of the misunderstood soul and assume the weight of manifesting your true identity. Close your eyes for a moment and think about the moments of deep sadness and discouragement that so many people face. What happens first when pain takes over? The body collapses. The shoulders slump. The glow disappears from the face. Self-care loses its meaning. The physical temple crumbles as an exact reflection of the exhausted soul. But observe with extreme attention the mysterious moment when healing begins to sprout. When the spark of life decides to return, the first impulse of any human being is not to write a great philosophical work. The first instinct is to wash their face, change their hair, put on something better, and lift their chin. This is not empty vanity or fleeting futility. It is the very essence of humanity reorganizing itself. The soul needs physical and tangible symbols to anchor its material transformation. Your body is the real stage where the invisible world rehearses who you are. Every time you choose neglect for pure convenience, your vital system understands that you are preparing for oblivion and defeat. But the beauty of it all is that the opposite carries an immediate magic. When you decide to treat your physical body with profound dignity, a silent rupture occurs in the web of reality around you. The anguish that seemed permanent begins to lose its strength, and the feeling of being invisible gives way to a magnetic presence that no one can ignore. There is a hidden reason for this change to occur so intensely and quickly, a biological and spiritual truth that the vast majority of people spend their entire lives without ever realizing. Your physical body carries a profound ancestral wisdom, and it has the capacity to learn the language of victory long before your rational mind can understand what is happening. This magic has an exact moment to occur. It is in the brief second when you lock eyes with your own reflection tomorrow morning that the universe will ruthlessly decide which version of your destiny will be activated. In the millisecond, your eyes meet your reflection in the mirror in the morning. A silent and relentless judgment takes place. Before you even have a chance to formulate a conscious thought about how your day will be, your nervous system has already read the message your image conveys and made an absolute decision about who you will be for the next 24 hours. Modern science and ancient mystics agree on a fascinating point that subverts everything we've been taught. The physical body is not a passive slave to the mind. It is often its great master. There is a surprising phenomenon that researchers of human behavior frequently observe. When a person wears a garment associated with power, success, or intelligence, their brain chemistry changes almost instantly. Breathing becomes deeper, the fear of others' judgment evaporates, and the mind is flooded with a new clarity. You don't need years of reflection to believe in this new reality at that moment, because your body has already convinced your soul that victory is your natural state. Consider the compelling story of a brilliant woman who, for years, was systematically ignored at every meeting and passed over for every major opportunity in her life. She didn't speak softly, and her intellect was formidable, but she dressed and moved like someone apologizing for taking up space. Her body was anchored in an old memory of rejection and invisibility. One day, driven by a profound exhaustion from always being in the shadow of others, she decided to conduct an improbable experiment. She didn't read any persuasion manuals or rehearse memorized speeches. She simply chose to dress, walk, and sit with the absolute dignity of someone who had already achieved everything she desired. What happened in the following hours defied common logic. Without her changing a single word of her usual vocabulary, the environment around her bowed. People fell silent when she opened her mouth. Indifferent glances transformed into expressions of respect and an inexplicable magnetism. The universe wasn't suddenly judging her intelligence. He was simply responding, like a perfect mirror, to the new symbol she had chosen to embody. Carl Jung understood this hidden mechanism with frightening precision. Our unconscious doesn't understand your abstract desires, your vivid hopes, or your promises that next year everything will be different. The unconscious only understands the raw, physical, and direct language of symbols. If you present yourself to the small world wearing the clothes of weariness and the posture of defeat, you will negotiate your dignity and accept being ignored in all spheres of life, no matter how much you pray every night for something better. The terrible pain that many feel when they realize they are not progressing stems precisely from this internal fracture. Your mind begs for abundance, respect, and true love, but the matter that covers you continues to vibrate at the frequency of scarcity, fear, and abandonment. It is completely impossible to transcend an invisible limit while you continue to wear the physical identity of the one who was wounded in the past. The moment you take care of yourself with reverence is not futility. It is the magical instant when you send a letter of emancipation to your own mind. It is a radical act of liberation. However, this vibrational leap brings with it a revelation that can be profoundly disturbing and that many cannot bear to face. When you transform the symbol you send out into the world, the material and emotional reality around you is forced to reconfigure itself, and this sudden change directly affects the people who share their lives with you. The old bonds that fed on your insecurity begin to tremble and lose their meaning. What happens when your new magnetic presence begins to threaten those who have always felt comfortable with your smaller, contained, and careless version? The true test of your destiny does not happen in the silence of your room, but at the exact moment when you need to sustain this new light before the eyes and criticism of those who claim to love you. The grand theater of existence is governed by invisible contracts that we sign without using a single drop of ink. Carl Jung realized that humanity doesn't relate to the pure essence of an individual at first encounter, but rather to the archetype that they choose to embody through their physical form. When you consciously alter your appearance and posture, you're not just changing your clothes or adjusting your spine. You are, in fact, tearing up the silent contract that kept you chained to the back of the stage, destroying the agreement of submission that guaranteed to others that you would never overshadow them. Imagine the journey of a man with a heart of gold and a brilliant mind, yet who walked through life like a ghost. He was the eternal helper, the passive listener, the one everyone praised for his kindness, but whom no one ever chose to walk alongside in great victories. He wore conformity in opaque shades, and his shoulders carried the weight of an endless wait for recognition that never came, until a cruel and divine revelation struck him. The world did not reject him out of malice. The world simply agreed with the apology his body emitted with every step. The moment this man understood the alchemy of his own body, he stopped begging for attention and transformed his physical temple into an altar of self-respect. He began to dress and move not to impress passers-by, but to seal a new pact with his own soul. The vibrational shift was instantaneous and startling. Without him needing to change his tone of voice, the people around him began to back away, make space, and fall silent to listen to him. As material reality magically rearranged itself to accommodate the new frequency he began to radiate. But what happens when your new light begins to blind those who have always felt comfortable in your shadow? Have you ever stopped to think how many people in your life secretly depend on your insecurity and carelessness to feel superior and secure in their own illusions? When you elevate your visual symbol, a tremor shakes the ecosystem of your intimate relationships. The collective unconscious of those around you possesses an immense gravitational force designed to keep everything and everyone exactly where they always were. By emerging with an upright posture, a penetrating gaze, and attire that honors your inner divinity, you cease to be a safe haven for emotional parasites. Your new image becomes a relentless mirror, reflecting the stagnation of those who lack the same courage to face their own evolution. It is precisely at this point that the shadow, masterfully described by Jung, manifests itself in the mouths of those who claim to love you. The world's resistance will not come in the form of declared enemies, but through subtle comments, biting jokes, and smiles laden with irony. They will say that you have lost your essence, that you have become frivolous, or that you are trying to be someone you are not, creating the most dangerous trap on the spiritual path, the confusion between others' sabotage and loving advice. They don't want to protect you from vanity. They want to protect themselves from the profound discomfort of seeing you grow. Maintaining this new frequency demands a firmness bordering on divine solitude. You will discover, with a clarity that cuts like glass, that your former careless humility was merely a feast for those who fed on your diminished light. Your new way of dressing, the care you take with your hair, and the firmness of your feet on the ground cease to be a mere aesthetic matter and become a spiritual sword and shield. They demarcate a sacred territory where mediocrity, disrespect, and half-truths are no longer allowed to enter. True initiation always demands an inevitable sacrifice. Are you prepared to watch old friendships crumble before your newfound dignity? What emotional price are you willing to pay to never again have to shrink yourself just to fit into someone else's narrow world? As the bonds based on your former weakness break, the void left behind is not a punishment, but a necessary purification of space. The law of resonance is perfect and never fails. Your new magnetic symbol will begin to attract circumstances and people who vibrate at the same altitude as your new conscious choice. The universe ceases to send painful lessons disguised as humiliation and begins to attract allies who recognize and celebrate your sovereignty. transforming you from an eternal student of pain into a master of your own material narrative. However, the force of this invisible magnetism doesn't only act on peripheral friendships or business tables. It descends to the deepest and most primitive roots of human existence, touching the very core where romantic love and intimate passion are born. Your image reveals secrets about your capacity to love and be loved that not even your most poetic words could confess. What is your physical body whispering at this very moment to the person who shares your life with you, or to the overwhelming love you still hope to find? They say true love is blind, seeing only the purity of intentions hidden deep within the soul. However, the great truth governing the dance of human encounters is fascinatingly opposed to this romantic belief. Love, in its most primitive and spiritual form, is the most relentless reader of symbols in the universe. Long before you utter the first enchanting word or confess your deepest feelings, your physical body has already sent a complete dossier about your wounds, your fears, and above all, the level of disrespect you are willing to tolerate. Researchers of human behavior and scholars of the unconscious mind have discovered a disturbing fact. The human brain needs less than 1/10 of a second to map an individual's self-esteem. This silent scan doesn't analyze your bank account or your intellect, but decodes the tension in your jaw, the symmetry of your walk, and the intention behind the way your clothes touch your skin. It's a biological and spiritual radar impossible to fool with sweet words. If you crave intimacy but dress and move with the hesitation of someone afraid of rejection, you emit a precise frequency of scarcity. You become an irresistible magnet for broken hearts and half-hearted loves. Consider the story of a woman who spent decades trapped in a cycle of fleeting relationships and emotionally unavailable partners. She possessed immense beauty and a loyal heart, but she dressed for dates not out of a desire to shine, but out of a fear of bothering others. She chose clothes that didn't assert her power, adopted a hunched posture to appear more docile, and arrived at dates with depleted energy, ready to adapt to whatever the other person wanted. She believed she was being flexible and loving, but the physical symbol she presented to the world was a luminous sign saying, "I accept being temporary." Carl Jung perfectly understood this hidden dynamic. He knew that the unconscious of another immediately detects the absence of a solid center. When a partner perceives this lack of physical and energetic anchoring, they simply don't commit, not out of cruelty, but because they don't find firm ground on which to build something lasting. This woman's destiny changed not when she made New Year's resolutions, but on the day she decided to drastically alter her visual pact with life. She began to dress and occupy space with the absolute dignity of a queen who doesn't need permission to exist. She started using her appearance as a declaration of sovereignty. What happened next seems like magic, but it's pure quantum physics and deep psychology. The men who used to approach her, those who sought shortcuts and shallow ties, suddenly felt repelled or intimidated by her new presence. Her new image became an insurmountable protective shield against mediocrity. Simultaneously, she began to attract the gaze and approaches of people who operated on a frequency of respect and permanence. The universe stopped sending lessons of abandonment because she stopped embodying the abandoned victim. You don't attract what you desire in your most secret dreams. You attract the exact frequency of what you represent in the material world. If your body tells a story of devaluation, you will negotiate your dignity in every kiss and every embrace. If your body communicates reverence for itself, you will establish an invisible boundary that no shallow love can cross. Your physical temple educates people on how they should touch your soul. Every choice you make in front of the mirror before meeting someone is, in fact, the silent elaboration of the contract that will define the future of that relationship. But there is a hidden terror in healing that few dare to mention. When you finally align your external image with your inner royalty, and the universe delivers exactly the love and respect you always asked for, a profound crisis sets in. You lose the right to complain. You lose the right to hide. You are forced to abandon the comfortable identity of the one who suffers and must bear the wonderful, yet terrifying weight of true happiness. And it is precisely in this abyss between achieving what one wants and having the power to sustain that victory that the vast majority of people give up and destroy their own destiny. Would you know what to do if tomorrow the whole world started treating you like the deity you were born to be? There is a deep, silent terror that accompanies true spiritual and material ascension, a fear so paralyzing that it causes thousands to recoil just as the door to destiny swings wide open. Carl Jung taught us that humanity does not truly fear darkness. The authentic panic of humankind is facing the responsibility and weight of its own light. When you finally abandon the victim mentality, don your visible sovereignty, and the world begins to give you the respect and love you have always secretly demanded, a terrifying crisis settles in your inner self. You imagine that your growth would be celebrated with applause, tears of joy, and smiles of pride from all the people who have walked beside you from the beginning. But the reality of the physical and emotional universe operates under an implacable law of inertia. The system around you, made up of longtime friends, family, and colleagues, is perfectly accommodated and structured around your smaller, contained, and faded version. Their past pain and constant insecurity served as a pillar of comfort and hidden superiority for these people's egos. When you dare to shine, heal your wounds, and project an image of absolute power through your body, you violently shatter this fragile ecosystem. Suddenly, your mere magnetic presence, with your shoulders raised and unwavering gaze, becomes an unbearable mirror. You begin to reflect, without uttering a single word, the cowardice and stagnation of those who have chosen to remain paralyzed by fear. It is at this exact turning point, at this painful crossroads, that the greatest of all trials takes place. The fierce resistance of fate to test your new identity will not come in the form of declared enemies with swords in hand or grand cinematic tragedies. It will come disguised as affection, laden with emotional blackmail, in the voices of the people you love and trust most. They will begin to launch subtle and poisonous comments at the most unexpected moments. They will say that you are unrecognizable, that you have lost your essential humility, that you have become a distant, vain, or arrogant person simply because now you walk with your spine straight, defend your boundaries, and wear clothes that honor your inner divinity. These words are not wise advice of genuine love. They are desperate attempts by the collective unconscious to drag you back into the mire of mediocrity, into the narrow, dark box where you pose no threat to anyone's illusions and laziness. The most heartbreaking twist in your journey of material and spiritual transformation is realizing that evolving almost inevitably means disappointing the limiting expectations of others. You will feel an overwhelming guilt strike your chest. An ancient, deceitful voice within your own mind will try to convince you that shining is an unforgivable act of selfishness, that you are betraying your roots and cruelly abandoning those who still suffer in ignorance. At this critical moment, the temptation to bow down again, to wear opaque clothes so as not to offend anyone, to speak more softly, and to diminish your brilliance just so that others will smile and approve of your existence will be immense. Countless brilliant souls give up and symbolically die right here. They prefer to return to the false security of mediocre acceptance, rather than endure the solitary splendor of true freedom. But if you succumb to this invisible gravity, you will commit the greatest spiritual crime against yourself. Sustaining your new image, your new look, and your new vibration amidst criticism, irony, and initial isolation is the trial by fire that definitively separates the creators of reality from the mere spectators of life. The universe is testing your conviction to the last drop of your resistance. It wants to know if your new pact of self-respect is an unbreakable law or just a temporary mask of vanity. By standing firm as a rock, enduring the discomfort of necessary farewells and the evaporating of old bonds, you destroy the wheel of repetition. You are about to cross the final frontier, the point of no return. What will happen in your life when you finally understand that the temporary pain of losing old companions was the cheapest and most liberating price you ever paid to regain absolute and eternal possession of your own soul? We have reached the threshold of the great portal of your existence, and the question that echoes through eternity is no longer whether you should care about your external image. The true question, the one that tears away the veils of illusion, is, to what pain or lie have you been faithful until today? Transforming the physical shell through pure consciousness is not an act of vanity. It is making a new pact with the creative source of life. It is definitively ceasing the charade of the fragile victim and taking, with your own hands, the staff of the creator of your material and spiritual reality. Carl Jung left us the compass for this journey when he revealed that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by becoming aware of our own darkness. And illuminating the darkness means looking directly at how you have neglected your body, hidden your presence, and apologized for breathing the air of this world. Your current destiny was written by the hands of fear and abandonment, but from this very moment, it can be rewritten by the sovereign force of your daily choice. The practice of this ancient wisdom is simple, painful, and profoundly liberating. Tomorrow, when the sun rises and you get up, don't just put on clothes to cover your skin. Transform this mundane moment into a sacred ritual of consecration. Before leaving the door, stop in front of the mirror. Take a deep breath and look into your own eyes. Choose your clothes, your posture, and your facial expression as one chooses the weapons of light to win the battle of life. Ask yourself in silence, is the image I return to the world now that of someone who expects handouts from the universe, or that of a divine being who recognizes their own majesty? Make your attire a manifesto of dignity. Walk with the straight spine of one who no longer carries illusory guilt. Speak with the firmness of one who has the universal right to occupy space and to be heard. At first, the mind will try to doubt, but your physical body, in its infinite wisdom, will teach your soul to believe. The day will come, much sooner than you imagine, when the reflection in the mirror will no longer be that of a weary survivor, but that of a master who reigns over himself with absolute peace. And on that sacred day, destiny, which once seemed a cruel judge, will have no choice but to bow and open all the doors that have always been locked. Because when you align your material form with your spiritual truth, your entire life reorganizes itself to honor your presence. If these words have touched your soul and awakened a dormant force within you, do not let this energy dissipate into oblivion. Mark this moment as the beginning of your new pact. Like this video to seal your intention with the universe. Subscribe to this channel so we can continue walking together on this journey of awakening and profound transformation. And above all, scroll down to the comments and write a word, a phrase, or a heartfelt message. Even if you prefer anonymity, leave your mark, declare your presence, and affirm to the world that from today onward, you will never again accept being invisible in your own story.